Okay. Ooh, wait a minute. Got my microphone. Shechiano, why Shechiano?
I haven't had this for years.
Yeah, of course. That's Etz and Shechiano. First the Etz and then Shechiano. Okay. Vino Adonai Eloheinu Aleinu Masei Adenu Konen Aleinu Masei Adenu Konenu. I'd like to thank the gracious host and hostess, Slava Takalov and Yana Binyaminova, for graciously opening their house for the Shiur Torah in Hewlett. Baruch Hashem, I haven't been in Hewlett in a little while for a class. It's been a little while. It's nice to be back. And may the Torah we learn tonight be Ilu Nishmat Avraham Albert Ben Esther V'Gavriel Halevi Ruach Adonai Tenichenu B'Gan Eden. Also, Ilu Nishmat Gavriel Grisha Ben Zilpa V'Yitzchak Chaim Binyano Halevi Ruach Adonai Tenichenu B'Gan Eden. And also for 1 second, there's one more here. Is there another name over here? Yeah. What was the other one? And also Lilu Nishmat Hiya Ben Sarah Shamulev. Ruach Adonai Tenichenu B'Gan Eden. So maybe you guys teach me how to speak. Please go right ahead. Lilu Nishmat. Who? Jake Yaakov Shmuel Ben Fege. Ruach Adonai Tenichenu B'Gan Eden. Lilu Nishmat. Lena Bat Rivka. Ruach Adonai Tenichena B'Gan Eden. Female. Yes. Please. Say it again. Jura Ben Zulai. Ruach Adonai Tenichena B'Gan Eden. Okay. So the topic tonight, of course, we're in the 3 weeks. So the topic tonight is going to be the parasha. We're dealing with this Bezat Hashem on Shabbat, which is a double parasha, Matot and Masei, together. And we're going to be focusing mostly on Parashat Matot. So the parasha starts off and says, Vaydeber Moshe el Rashi HaMatot Livnei Yisrael lemor zeh hadavar shetziva Adonai. And Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribes, to these leaders of the tribes of the Israelites, and saying, this is what Yud-Kei Vav-Kei has commanded. Now, just as an aside, not directly germane, Moshe Rabbeinu, we know, was the greatest prophet that was ever amongst the Jewish people. Yes? Not necessarily the greatest smart person that ever lived amongst the Jewish people. That was Shlomo HaMelech. But Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest prophet, as the Torah tells us, V'lo kam b'Yisrael od keMoshe, that never again will arise amongst the Jewish people a prophet like Moses. And what made Moses unique? There are various things that made Moses unique, but one of them was this statement. Zeh hadavar. What does it mean, zeh hadavar? This is the word. All the other prophets, you look at the rest of the Tanakh, all the other prophets, no one else used this language, zeh hadavar, which means it's precision. This is precisely what God said. The other prophets used the term Ko Amar Hashem. What is Ko Amar Hashem? This is like what God said. And again, it's accurate enough for our purposes, but their vision, their ability to perceive in prophecy was nowhere near that level of Moses. No other prophet. Moses is in a category all to himself. And there are various other items that I'm not going to go into that now. And what was it about Moses? What was that special character about Moshe that allowed him to have that level of closeness to God? Correct. His humility. And that's going to be very important for the topic we're talking tonight. So the Parasha starts off, and what is he going to tell the people? He's going to tell the people, Ish ki dor neder laHashem, a person, a man who makes a neder, a vow to God, or hishava shivua le'esor yisal nafsho, or he made an oath, putting an obligation on himself. Lo yachel devaro. You are not allowed to delay in fulfilling what you said with your mouth. As the Torah says, Kechol hayotze mipiv yaseh. Whatever comes out of your mouth has to be done. Wow, these two look alike. No? They're not related?
This guy?
No.
Me?
You.
He married his daughter. My father.
Wow. What's that? I know that, but this is crazy. What's it?
Wow.
Yeah, no. Anyway, Baruch Hashem. She picked well, and so did you. Let's continue. So it's huh? Okay, we won't talk about that. So a person has to fulfill his vow. Now it depends on what type of vow it is. If it's a vow to give a poor person charity, that has to be done immediately. Which means if you're walking by someone who says, "Can I have whatever?" and you say, "Yeah, I'll give you," you can't delay that. You have to give them right away. There's a story in the Gemara. One of the rabbis delayed in giving charity, giving an appropriate whatever to a person, and the person died. So from here we understand that when a person promises charity to an individual, an ani, it has to be given immediately. But generally, other types of donations, shall we say, to the synagogue. Now, of course, if the synagogue really needs it, you want to help them as much as possible. But lo yachel dvaro, the time frame is 3 holidays. 3 holidays go by, and not just any 3 holidays. 3 holidays in order. So that means if a person gives a donation right after Pesach, he has the longest amount of time to fulfill that neder. Why? Because you have Pesach just finished, right? You have Shavuot, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. You have 5 holiday cycles. So you'd have to fulfill that neder by the end of Sukkot, this is the second one. Whereas if a person gives a neder right before Pesach, right before Passover, then as soon as Sukkot is finished, or during Sukkot, he has to fulfill that neder. Okay? So that's really only 3 holiday cycles. So that's what lo yachel dvaro. This is a lo ta'aseh, it's a lav in the Torah, it's a negative commandment, not to fulfill your word.
If you try to make, for example, the shul, so you went to the shul
Yeah.
a couple of times, it's not your shul, it's obviously like far away, you went as a guest, you wrote something, you went to the shul 3 times and 3 times it was closed.
Send him a check.
How? I don't know, like you don't know anyone over there.
It's not up to you, basically.
Again, you do the best you can. You know, if you owe money, you owe money. You have to figure it out.
No, just because the house
Is it still considered to him the same amount of time to wait?
Yeah.
Because he did
Same
his
thing.
effort. He did his effort.
No, it's not just
it's
effort.
tough.
It's a lo yachel dvaro. It's not just effort. It's fulfillment of the pledge. So you want to find the address. Find their address and send them a check. Someone invited you over there. Yeah.
After Pesach, you have Shavuot, Sukkot, then another Pesach, then
Shavuot,
another
Sukkot. 3 holidays in order.
And it's also today.
Yeah. Yes.
Your time limit to pay.
Time limit to pay your debts, to pay your neder. 3 holidays in order. I just explained it. I'll explain it again. 3 holidays in order: Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot in that order.
Yeah.
So if you give a neder, you make a neder
We're gonna call them on.
right after Passover. So okay. So then you have Shavuot, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot.
So you have almost a year and a half
That's correct.
to pay back.
Correct. But if you make a neder right before Pesach, you have less than a year. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot.
I always thought within a year it has to be paid off.
It's
Before Yom Kippur, you could better pay it off.
it's a year cycles.
It's better. Yeah, this is what they said.
All right, this is not what we're talking about tonight, so forgive me. It's off the topic, but I want to get back. So we see, what's that? It's your over in a lo ta'aseh in the Torah. Yeah, you pay it. Yeah. Okay. What do we notice from here? It says ish. Over here, it's specifically speaking about a man. A man that makes a neder has to fulfill that neder. Now, there is a way around that as well. Let's say a person makes a neder and they realize they can't fulfill that neder. There's something called a hatarat nedarim, which we're going to be very familiar with in the very near future. Okay? Hatarat nedarim, which basically means you go in front of a bet din or you go in front of one chacham and they look for a petach, which means if you would have known this, would you have made that neder? Classic story is given in the Talmud about Kalba Savua. Kalba Savua in Aramaic translated the dog that is satiated. If you know if anybody has a dog, you know one thing about dogs. they're never satiated. They'll eat, vomit, and eat again. Okay, dogs are never full. Okay, he was called Kalba Savua. Why? Because he was so wealthy that almost in his house, the dogs even had so much food to eat that they were full. They were fulfilled. Anyway, so he had a daughter, and I'm not sure I know her name. What? Rachel. Thank you. Rachel, his daughter. And once she saw Rabbi Akiva, but he wasn't Rabbi Akiva back then. He was Amaretz Gamur. He didn't know Alephet. He was an Amaretz. Whatever. He was not Torah knowledgeable at all. Didn't even know Alephet. So what happened? Rachel recognized that he had some beautiful traits like humility, and she wanted to marry him. So Kalba Savua said, I don't want you to marry him. I'm a rich guy. I don't want you to marry this guy. I want you to marry a Torah scholar. Don't marry this guy. He doesn't know anything. She said, no, Daddy, I want to marry him. So what did he do? He made a neder. He made a vow that he's not going to support her or let her have any benefit from anything that he owns. So now what happens? What does she do? She marries him anyway. Okay, and what is this? What?
No wedding.
I don't know. It was a very low-key wedding, I guess. It was a COVID wedding. They didn't have too many people there. Anyway, so
That was the only daughter?
I don't know. So let's continue the story. So what happens? So Rabbi Akiva, Rachel says, okay, listen, I didn't marry you because you're an Amaretz. Go learn. You know, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. So what does he do? He goes to learn for 12 years. He goes away from his wife for 12 years. Ladies, you hear that? 12 years. Okay? Goes away from his wife for 12 years. I'm not encouraging this any guys. Okay? And he goes to learn. Okay? What happens? After 12 years, he comes back. He has 12,000 students. Okay? He comes back. And he's about to come into the house, and he overhears his wife having a conversation with the neighbor. And the neighbor says, wow, your husband's away for 12 years? I mean, really? When's he coming home? So he said something. She said something to the effect, you know what? If he came in the door, I'd let him go for another 12 years. So what does he do? He turns around, goes back for another 12 years. For 24 years, he becomes a tremendous Talmid Chacham. Rabbi Akiva, one of the greatest rabbis we've ever had, and he had 24,000 students, yes? So what happens? Kalba Savua has regrets. Why does he have regrets? Because he made this vow. The poor woman, listen, the girl didn't listen to him. He tried to, make it difficult for her. She didn't listen anyway. Typical teenager. And what happened? She married him anyway. So now he feels bad that she's a pauper, and he's the richest guy in Jerusalem, one of the 3 richest guys in Jerusalem. So what he does is he says, you know what? I'm going to wait until one of the great Talmidei Chachamim come, and I'm going to ask for a Hatarat Nedarim. And lo and behold, little to his knowledge, Rabbi Akiva is coming to town. He hears that this big rabbi is coming to town. He says, I'm going to go talk to that rabbi because I feel very bad at what I did to my daughter. Yeah. So he meets Rabbi Akiva, doesn't recognize Rabbi Akiva, but Rabbi Akiva recognizes him right away, just like the Yosef and the brother situation, right? So, which is a lot of parallels with that. We'll leave that alone. Anyway, so Rabbi Akiva, so the Kalba Savua says, I made a vow many, many years ago that I would not allow my daughter to have any benefit from any of my property, and I feel terrible about it. I'd like to get a hatara. I'd like to get an annulment of the vow. So Rabbi Akiva says, if your daughter would have married a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, would you have made the vow? No! The only reason I made the vow is because she was marrying this Amaretz. I wanted her to marry a Talmid Chacham. So then Rabbi Akiva says, if your daughter would have married somebody like me, would you have disowned her? No, this is exactly what I wanted. Hi, how are you? I'm your son-in-law. And that's called Hatarat Nedarim. So you find a way that if the person who made the neder wouldn't have made that neder, right? It's called a petach, okay? Then you're allowed, you can call Hatarat Nedarim. Certain ones you can't do Hatara, like donations to synagogues and charity. There's no Hatara for that. So sorry about that, okay? Or ta'anit also. There's no hatara for ta'anit. If person makes a neder that they're going to fast, they got to fast. Okay?
How about a neder to you want to buy something?
Okay, we're going to see very quickly as we go through the class why it's not a good idea to make neder. Okay? So we see for a man, there's only one way out of the neder. It's called hatara, which means he has to go to a chacham and find a petach. The ladies have 2 options. Well, one is not really their option. They have hatara. They can also go to a Talmid Chacham and get a hatara just like a man can. But they can also get something called hafara. What is hafara? That's an uprooting of the vow. It's not an annulment. An annulment means it was there, but it's not there, right? This is an uproot. It never was there. We're going to get to it. So the Torah tells us if a woman makes a neder to prevent herself from having something in the house of her father, the father, if once he hears the neder or he finds out about it, he doesn't have to hear it, but he knows about it, he can make hafara. He can say that neder is null and void. Okay, he has the authority, and then she's not required to fulfill her neder. If he finds out that she made the neder and he doesn't object at all, now she's obligated. Okay, so that's a woman who's living in her father's house. Now,
right away, or can it be done like with it later?
No, it's when he hears that day, the day that he hears, he has to say that's not a neder. Don't wait. As soon as he hears it, he says that's not a neder. If he waits until the next day, then it's too late.
Same day, but later.
Correct. Well, yeah, as long as it was
Is
before
it the
Sunday.
same thing as not having heard and then found out the next day?
No, if he heard it, he heard it. If he didn't hear it, he didn't hear it. Once he hears it. There's another, now the Torah tells us, now the woman goes, she gets married. She's living with her husband. Her husband has that same right. So if a woman makes a neder, and her husband, the time he hears the neder that she made, he's allowed to also be mefer her neder. He can uproot her neder completely. And then the Torah says if a woman, unfortunately, is a widow or she's divorced, there's no one to be mefer her neder because she's not in that situation anymore. Okay? What's the Torah trying to tell us? Ladies, what is the Torah trying to tell us? No, I want the ladies to answer this question. Good. That's exactly right. And because they're emotional, what happens? Exactly. Oh my God, she really said that's why I had the ladies to say that, because if the men would say that, then you get into trouble. We let the ladies say that, and hopefully they're honest. Okay? What's that? You could have come up with that answer, but then you wouldn't, you'd be in the doghouse for a couple of days. Anyway, so that's correct. So because women are more emotional, right? Person has to think before they make a neder. Am I going to be able to fill this neder? But because ladies have a tendency to be more emotional, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's the way God built us different, yes? And that's the reason why women are more nurturing and men are not, okay? Women are more able to get in tune with the children and men are not. There are exceptions, but for the most part, that's the way it is. This is how God designed us. We can't complain about it. We can't change it, despite the fact that we're hearing from all these crazies on the left. We can't change it. It is what it is, okay? So we see that the Torah wants to give away that because there's going to be a problem in the shalom in the house, whether it's when she's living with her father or she's living with her husband. Because what's going to happen? Let's say the woman gets really, really upset and says, I make a neder, I'm not going to have meat for the next 10 years. Now, all the men in this room are going to say, are you kidding me? If you're not getting, unless you happen to cook, okay, which is great, So any neder, most of these are going to affect the husband, because if she makes a neder, she's not going to have meat. Chances are she's not making you a steak. She's going to make you a soy burger. And I don't think too many guys in Uzbekistan like soy burgers. So what does that mean? So therefore, when the husband hears this, it affects him directly, which means the shalom of the bayit is risky because she's more likely to make a neder. And therefore, the Torah gives a dispensation to allow the husband or the father to uproot the neder in order to maintain the shalom. When the woman is living by herself, she doesn't have a husband, then the shalom bayit is not a problem in that situation. If she makes a neder, she's no different than a man. She has to fulfill it. She get a heter, like we talked hatarat nedarim, but there's no hafarat nedarim. So we see right away the parasha is giving us a certain idea here about peace in the house, recognizing that men and women are different. Yes, even though they're different, the Torah gives a special dispensation here to allow for the neder to be uprooted. Any questions on that?
But today we're doing it once a year. And what type of reasons they're giving? Everyone coming with.
Today we do Hatarat Nedarim.
Yes, we're doing Hatarat Nedarim in the shul.
Correct. That's something else. That's not Hafarat Nedarim. This is different. Now, what's the problem with making Neder? So let's see what the Talmud tells us. Masechet Shabbat. Tanya Rabbi Natan Omer. Rabbi Natan says, ladies, you want to pay attention. This is very, very important because your husband makes neder. It's a problem for you. What does it say? Ba'avon nidarim. In the sin of vows, I mean, the sin is not to make a vow. The sin is to make a vow and not keep it, right? Meta isha shel adam. The woman, chas v'shalom, can be taken to Shamayim. So which means if your husband, if a man happens to be a person who makes a lot of neder, that's very dangerous for the lady. That's what the rabbi says here. Okay? So you want to marry, you don't want to marry a guy that's too emotional. Remember, you like a little bit of emotional sensitivity and all that kind of stuff because it helps with the romance, but you don't want him sitting the whole day long and not going to work because that doesn't work either, right? So at the end of the day, bring flowers, but go to work first, okay? So there's a balance between the two of them together. So very, very important that for the guys, and why should it be that the woman is taken? Why shouldn't he die? Good question. No, the ladies are also asking that question.
She's supposed to hear this, or it could be done besides?
No, if he makes neders on a regular basis, it's sakana. It's a little dangerous for her. Huh? But why should it be if he makes a neder, she dies?
Why it's not?
She can't stop him. I mean, she can stop him. She can tell him to shut his mouth. She could stuff a sock in there, but she can't really, she can't uproot his neder. What's the idea?
It's not harder to survive without a woman.
What is when a man is not married? What doesn't he have? He may have shalom bait. He has no bait though, so he has shalom but no bait. The key is to have shalom and have a bait. That's the hard part. Shalom by yourself is very easy, but when you have to deal with other people, then the shalom becomes more problematic. The bracha we said last week is all based on the woman, not the guy. So since he's making all these neder, he loses his bracha. Now, so let's understand this. I'll bring another example. The ladies are not going to like this, but I have to bring it anyway because it is a Torah. You have to understand it. Okay? Just met me. Well, listen, I was asked to give a class to talk a little bit about shalom in the house, so it's always a sensitive subject. I generally like to do this with women and men separate, but we have that opportunity. So there's a halacha by a eved ivri, by a Hebrew maidservant, Hebrew slave, yes? When does a Jewish man get sold into slavery? Against his will. When? Can't pay his debts, which means really he stole money and he has to pay it back and he can't pay it back. Okay? So what happens if the man goes and he becomes a slave and he's not married? The Adon is not allowed to give him a wife, a Canaanite wife. Not allowed to do that. Okay, he does not have the right to give a Canaanite wife. What's the advantage to giving the Eved Ivri a Canaanite wife? Because in all the children born of that relationship are slaves. He's like a stud for the guy. Okay. What happens if he's married? If he's married, when he gets sold into slavery, the Adon is allowed to give him another wife on top of her, okay, a Canaanite wife, and have children from this woman, and those children remain slaves when he's freed. Why?
What if wife is against it?
That she has no choice. Against it. She has no choice. Just like he has no choice, she has no choice.
But they're still together with the first wife.
Of course he's still together with the first wife. So why should it be that a married woman has to share her husband with a Canaanite, but a man that's not married can't be forced to have a Canaanite. So what some of our rabbis say, or some of the says is, well, why is the man stealing?
The woman
If he's
drove
just
away.
feeding his family, that's one thing. But you don't need a BMW to feed your family, right? So sometimes the wife makes, listen, when you get married, if you have a certain lifestyle that you're accustomed to, which is very important. Your girls, one day I assume you have girls. All the women here are already married. Yes, so it's already too late. But for your girls and guys, the key is make sure your daughter marries a man that can support her in the lifestyle that she grew up with. Okay? There aren't too many women like Rachel, the daughter of Kalba Savua. That doesn't almost exist anymore. And even in the Talmud, that's rare. Okay? So, and it's very simple, because what is she going to do? Like we said, a woman wants to marry a man that's going to be like her father. The same, if they had two cars in one house with a picket fence, you have a picket fence here. The expectation is that's what she's going to grow up expecting, because that's what she saw her mother receiving from her father. And that's what she's going to expect from her husband. The problem becomes when she marries a guy that doesn't have the ability to support her like that. Now she's going to have a downgrade in her lifestyle. Most people don't want to downgrade in lifestyle. It's very hard to live with that. And so what is she going to do? She's going to say, come on, you got to work harder. You got to more. My father got this from my mother. He got a present every single Shabbat, got flowers. She got jewelry on the holidays, whatever. So what's he going to do? He's going to do the best he can. And sooner or later, if he can't make it, what's going to happen? He's going to steal. First of all, he's stealing. It's his fault. So he's being sold as a slave. But it's a unit. She's not an innocent party. So therefore, that's why the Torah has this idea there. Okay? So the same thing. So we see there's certain things here we understand there are differences between men and women. Let's continue on, because that's one opinion of the Talmud. So the one opinion says a person who makes nedarim, what happens? He loses his beracha. Meaning, chas v'shalom, the wife.
How much time do you have to repent?
And lo yachel dvaro.
What is it?
We talked about that already.
No.
3 holiday seasons.
Oh, 3 was the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? And it says nedarim. It's not saying one neder. Okay? It's a person who's accustomed to making vows. There are some people that, with the way they talk, I swear to God, that's what it is. Don't do that. Be very careful. The mouth, men and women, by the way, very careful what comes out of your mouth. Because what does the Torah say? Kechol hayotzeh mipiv yaseh. Whatever comes out of your mouth, you have to do. If you make a commitment to do something, you have to do it. Even if you don't say, again, it's not the same thing as a neder when you say, I'm going to say make a neder. But when you say you're going to do something, the expectation is you're going to do it. Correct. But then they know you're not going to do it. All right.
50 chance.
Yeah, 50-50. Yeah, tell me about it. Okay. Rabbi Omer, this is even worse. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, ladies, pay attention. Am I going too fast? English good, or we just okay? Ba'avon nedarim.
Just clarify here. So let's say it was said, I swear, or whatever it was said, but it's not to a point that it really mentioned that they swear. Do they still have to do
Okay, the way a neder is, how a person says, Hare alai, I'm taking upon myself a neder, and this is the neder. There's just
that word. You know how it's thrown?
you have to say the word. No, but you want to be careful. Even okay, what we're trying to say is the Torah tells us about a neder. Yes, but the way the Torah couches it is kechol hayotzeh mipiv yaseh. So if a person says they're going to do something and doesn't do it, okay, as long as it's not a neder, but what are we saying? You're really distancing yourself from God. Because whatever God says he's going to do, he does. And it's the job of every Jewish man and every Jewish woman to do the best they can to emulate God. When God says he's going to do something, he does it. Right? God says he's going to bring the Mashiach. We're waiting a long time, but we know it's going to happen. How do we know? Because he said it's going to happen. No, it's different.
It's not the same.
No, because it was conditional. What did he say? He said, he could bring the Mashiach. Okay, good, very good. So let me answer your question. So it says that there's a story that once, I forgot who the rabbi was. I think it was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, was going, and he heard that Eliyahu Hanavi was in the Sha'ar of Rome. That's what the Gemara says. It's probably got a little deep meaning there, but I didn't prepare it, so I can't say it. And so he wants to go, he goes to ask Eliyahu Hanavi, when's the Mashiach coming? So what did Eliyahu Hanavi say? He goes to, imagine, what's going on? When are you going to bring the Mashiach? Because Eliyahu is supposed to be about to send the Mashiach. And what does Eliyahu Hanavi say? Hayom! Today! Oh my gosh! So right, he gets all excited. He puts on his best, his best outfit, his suit and his tie, the whole thing. And the day comes, the day goes, and there's no Mashiach. So the next day he goes back to see Eliyahu Hanavi. He said, wait a minute, you lied to me. He said, you didn't understand what I said. Hayom is a pasuk. Im bekolo tishma'u. Who said that? Very good. Who said that? Who said that?
There's a Rebbitzin over
The Rebbitzin. Hayom im bekolo tishma'u. Today, only if you're going to listen to my voice. So it could be today. And if the Mashiach didn't come today, what does that mean? We're not listening. If Tisha B'Av this time comes and goes, and we go through the fast, and it's there, what does that mean? We're not listening. Good? Okay. Continuing on. Ba'avon nidarim Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, Banim metin keshehen tanim chas v'shalom. Children die when they are young. Now, the goal of this is not to say, someone's child died, that's because they made nidarim. This is personal. Only you look at yourself. Nobody looks at anybody else, because nobody else goes on with going on in someone else's business. Yes? Okay? But that's the thing to understand, that there's a risk when a person is making nidarim all the time, that what Hashem will do is take the children. Because why is that? Once again, what are the children? The children is the bracha from the house. Yes? It's the continuity. Why is speech so important? What's your question?
Hashem created the world with a
This
space.
is only for someone who promises something that they are gonna do, or like promises that.
It means if they keep it, they say I'm gonna lose weight.
Okay, it's not a good idea to make nidarim at all.
There's no positives.
There is no again. It says that a person is allowed to make a neder to fulfill a mitzvah. That's a place where you have some permission to make nidarim, because there's a pasuk, and I think in Tehillim, that says I made a neder so I can fulfill. But it's really not advisable, because you put yourself into a risk. You don't have to make the neder to do it. Just do the things that, just do it, right? But a person has to be careful about what they say. And the reason for that is what distinguishes human beings on this planet from animals. Speech. Animals are? Some humans don't have self-control, right? But the thing that distinguishes all human beings from all animals is the ability to communicate. Now, animals have rudimentary communication, but I don't think the dolphins in the Atlantic Ocean speak a different language than the dolphins in the Pacific Ocean. Okay, if we go around this table over here, there's probably 3 or 4 languages that are circulating around between everybody here, yes? And, if we're in other places in Queens, there could be 70 or 80 languages circulating around. So, you know what I mean? So, Forest Hills Hospital, trust me, the language bank was busy there, okay? So we see that we have a lot of different and everyone's sophisticated. Learn to speak Chinese, then you'll understand what sophistication is. Yeah, I mean, it's complicated language. Yes, English is a complicated language for anybody who wasn't taught it when you were a kid, right? Russian is an impossible language. You got 33 letters, and I can't even pronounce half some of the letters over there. So it's difficult. Speech is hard. Animals don't have that intelligence. So what separates us and makes us human beings is the ability to speak. And that's why a person has to be very, very cautious about speech.
Why Goy doesn't have this?
Goy does have it.
If he said that he had to have to himself.
Okay, Goy doesn't have what?
Nidarim, like he says that he
Doesn't have the
wants to
nidarim.
So why he doesn't have it? He's a human being also, but in the lower level also.
That's why.
Okay, so it's a public video, so I have to be
I see.
careful what I say.
Oh, it's live, sorry.
Torah. So anyway, so the Ramban in 1263 was invited to a debate, not invited, but sort of almost forced to a debate with a Jewish former Jew who became a Christian by the name of Pablo Cristiani. Pablo Cristiani had studied Talmud, studied Tanakh, and he said we went after he became a Gentile, because it was so much easier to be a Gentile those days than it was a Jew. So he went and he said, I want to set up a debate to debate one of their rabbis, because I want to, bury the guy, because I know a lot of Talmud, right? Unfortunately, he picked the Ramban. That was a big mistake. The Ramban initially didn't want to go, because these things never turned out well for the Jewish people, because the Gentiles would put certain criteria on there, right? You can't say anything against Jesus. You can't say anything against the church. You can't say anything about the Christian Bible. Well, what are we going to talk about? We're talking about we're going to play chess? So the Ramban, so the king at that time was very progressive, not like progressive today, but progressive. And basically the Ramban said, the only way I'm going to do this debate is I have to be able to say anything I want. I'll try to be as respectful as possible, but if we're going to debate between a Jew and a Christian, there are things I'm going to say that the priests and the friars are not going to like. So if I can speak freely, then we can debate. So the king said, no problem. You can speak freely. So they had this debate. It was 3 days. Why do I bring this up? Because Pablo Cristiani, what does he say? He says, you Jews, in the Talmud, it says that the goyim are animals. And he brings a pasuk. Adam atem. The pasuk says, Adam atem. You are men. What does the Talmud learn? Atem kuruyin Adam. Ve'en umot ha'olam kurim Adam. You are called Adam, but the nations of the world are not called Adam. Now that was a straight out of the Talmud. It does say that. So the Ramban had to think, probably not too fast, because he's a really, really smart guy. You have to know what's going to answer. You can't just say, yeah, we hold that, oh, you guys are dogs. That wouldn't work out so well, okay? So what does he say? He says, you don't really understand the pasuk, Pablo. Adam atem means what? We are one body. One body. When a Jew in Spain is hurting, the Jew in France feels the pain. You guys, every other year, you fight with each other. Spain, France, you're both Catholic, and you kill each other all the time. Why? Because he's Spanish. So you're not one body. You're all separate bodies. We are one body. So we feel the pain of any Jew anywhere in the world. That was the Ramban's answer. But in truth, the Talmud exactly says that and means what it said. And what does that mean? Because the Gentiles don't use their mouth properly. Okay? And if you look at in the story that we're going to read about, the Torah that we're allowed to learn on Tisha B'Av is Kamsa Bar Kamsa, yes? The story in Masei Gittin, yes? And if anybody remembers that, this was the class I put on the video from a couple of years ago. I put it on public today. But anyway, what does it say? If you remember, when Bar Kamsa is coming back with the animal, remember, Bar Kamsa said, the Jewish people are rebelling against you. The Caesar said, what are you talking about? No way, they're not doing it. He said, I'll prove it to you. We'll bring an animal, and I'll bring the animal as a gift from the Caesar to sacrifice in the temple, and let's see if they sacrifice the animal. If they don't sacrifice the animal, then you know that they're rebelling against you. And the halakha, by the way, is a Gentile is allowed to give a sacrifice to the temple. But there's a difference between a sacrifice from a Jew and a Gentile. What's the difference? Gentile sacrifice is called olah. Everything goes. All has to be burned. A Jew can do olah, which means everything is burned. A Jew can also have what's called shlamim. What is shlamim? Edible, meaning shlemut, or peace, which means there's peace between God and man because they're eating at the table together. Yes? That's all the holidays when we bring sacrifices, the shlamim. There's olat re'iyah, which is olah, and then there's shlamim. The chagigah is a shlamim, which means we bring the animal, and then that's what we eat on the holiday. Why do we eat meat on the holiday, which comes from the mizbeach? Yes? That's the whole concept of shlamim. So, but a Gentile is allowed to bring a korban to the Beit HaMikdash, can't come into certain places, but he's allowed to send one in as long as the animal is kosher and it doesn't have any blemishes on it. The Gentile's allowed to do that, okay? So what does this guy do, Bar Kamsa? Does anybody remember what he does? He puts a blemish in the animal, but specifically a blemish, and if you look, it's beautiful. He puts a blemish in a place where even the Gentiles don't bring blemished animals as sacrifices in their temples. But the Jewish people have blemishes more They have more strict criteria. And what's one of the criteria for a Jew? If the animal has a blemish in the lip, right, that animal cannot be sacrificed. But the Gentiles don't regard that as a blemish. So Bar Kamsa put a blemish, according to one opinion, in the lip of the animal. Yes? What's the symbolism? What we just talked about. The Gentiles, their speech is whatever they want to say. As long as they don't blaspheme against God, then they say whatever they want, right? A Jew has a lot more than just blasphemy. Nedarim, not to take Hashem's name in vain. There's all kinds of other halachot surrounding what a person is allowed to say. Okay, so we see that there are differences. Does it answer? Whose question was that? That was your question, yes? Okay. No.
The animal was from Gentile.
Right, but it can't be sacrificed in the temple.
Can be.
It can be. You can bring this, but not with a blemish. So just
But it is from Goyim, not from a Jew.
so what?
The Goyim
Ki
is-
beti bet tefillah lechol ha'amim. The temple is a place of prayer for all the nations. It's not just limited to the Jews. They can't go anywhere they want, just like the Israel can't go anywhere they want in the temple. There's limitations where you can go, but a Gentile is allowed to send a sacrifice to the temple.
When they bring their own sacrifices, they have less limitations in their own temples. But here, you have to follow
That animal was coming from the king of the
Yeah,
from the Caesar.
right,
So basically, that animal belongs to the Gentile,
right.
and it's okay to have
No.
a defect on the lip.
No,
Because
it's only if you're sacrificing this house of Avodah Zarah. But if you bring it to the temple, it can't
Has
have
to be
that
perfect.
blemish. It has to be perfect, correct?
Jews and from Goyim, perfect.
Correct. But the symbolism there is what? The mouth. There's another opinion in the Talmud. What's the other opinion? Where was the blemish? Eye. Why is that?
Whatever you see, the wind is the soul.
What was the only thing that Bilam said that was fulfilled for all history? All the things he wanted to curse us about, he came out of his mouth as a bracha. Yes, we know that. We read that a couple of weeks ago, right? But everything that the curses that he wanted to do came out as a bracha, but unfortunately, because we didn't behave ourselves, we received all those curses, with the exception of one. Anybody?
He moved. He didn't want to look at this.
He saw them. He didn't
I'll give you a
find
hint.
the negative.
It's one of the 6 Pesukim in the Torah where the top of the Torah is not a Vav. If you look in the ladies may not know this. In a Sefer Torah, when you get an Aliyah, you will notice that every single column starts with a Vav, except for 6. Obviously, Breshit doesn't start with a Vav, it starts with a Bet. But there are 6 other places in the Torah where the top letter in the column is not a Vav. One of them is here. What's the pasuk? Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. That's a mem, and that's at the top of the page, right? What does that pasuk mean? Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov. You look at Rashi. What does Rashi say? That when the Jewish people have their houses, they don't put the windows so each one can look into each other's business. No peeping Toms. The Goyim don't pay attention to that. That's the symbolism of the eye. Or another example, I'm not touching her, I'm just looking. The Gentile will say something like that. Unfortunately, sometimes Jews say that, which is not good. But we say, a Jew is not allowed to allow their eye to wander to a place where it's not supposed to look. So we see both of these are items where the Gentiles are not careful and the Jewish people have to be careful. And especially the speech, because if you look at the most Shalom Bayit issues happen because of lousy communication or not enough communication or misunderstandings. Most machloket, disputations that happen in synagogues, same thing. Lousy communication, not enough communication, or miscommunication. Wars, same thing. The temple was destroyed because of this. If you look at the story of Bar Kamsa, what was the conclusion of the Talmud? The rabbis were sitting there and they didn't say anything. They saw the humiliation that Bar Kamsa was exposed to by the Gavra, by the rich guy, okay? And they didn't protest. Now, that doesn't justify what he did. But we see that the eyes of the congregation, which were the rabbis, were blinded because of the people and their sins and all that kind of stuff. And listen, at the end of the day, Jewish leadership, you get the leader you deserve. So because the people there were not so good, even their leaders were clear. And look at the whole thing that happens at the end with Rav Zechariah ben Avkulis, right? When they brought the sacrifice, yes, they brought it and they saw it had a mum. They knew exactly what Bar Kamsa was doing. So what did they say? Let's sacrifice it anyway. It's pikuach nefesh. If we don't sacrifice this from the king is going to think we're rebelling, and he's going to come, and Jews are going to die. Pikuach nefesh pushes the whole Torah aside, with the exception of three things. You bring the sacrifice. That was what they wanted to do. Rav Zachariah ben Avkuli said, you can't do that. What's going to happen if you do that? All the generations in the future are going to say, you can bring a sacrifice that has a mum on it, the lip. So then another suggestion was made. Okay, we can't bring a sacrifice, just to show you how warped it is. So let's not sacrifice this animal because of what he just said. Let's kill Bar Kamsa. Why can they kill Bar Kamsa from halacha point of view? He's a moser. He's an informer. The halacha is whoever kills the moser, zacha, merit. So they went from sacrificing an animal to let's kill this guy. And then Rav Zachariah ben Avkuli said, you can't kill him. Why can't you kill him? Because then everybody's going to say if you bring in an animal to the temple with a mum, they get the death penalty. So what did they do? They didn't sacrifice the animal. So you see, the whole thing is surrounding speech, right? What happened to the story that he came and they invited the wrong guy. It was the wrong speech. They invited the wrong person. Instead of inviting Kamsa, which is the friend, they invited Bar Kamsa. Speech and optics. That is everything. In the house, in the community, in your business, and in the world. And vis-a-vis God. That's what the Torah has come to teach us here. And that's why it's so severe. The Talmud is telling us that if a person, God forbid, is not careful with their mouth, they make nedarim. They lose the bracha, chas v'shalom, they lose their children.
But you said the wife. But
That's one opinion.
No, but that's just I'm not saying anything. I'm not against the wife. I'm just saying, what if the wife said something? Then what happens?
Okay, he has the ability to cancel it.
Okay, he's not canceling it.
Then he's an idiot.
No, I know, but I'm saying he was spaced out.
Then he's an idiot.
I know, but I'm saying what happens?
No, he can't. Come on.
No,
What if he?
when he said it?
Yeah. She
suffer.
can't cancel it.
No. I'm saying if she gonna have a
No, it doesn't suffer. It doesn't.
So who's gonna be punished?
And there's another issue here. What's the other issue? A man is not supposed to make nedarim. We said before, women are much more likely to make nedarim. Why? Because they're more sensitive. They get hurt, right? Right? We have a passionate. Again, that there's a connection, emotion, passion. That's one of the things we're punished for: lack of passion. That's why I always like to leave the analogy that if you take twigs, you want to build a fire, right? What do you got to do? You take twigs and you take paper, you light them on fire, and you put the log there. Right? If you take the match, you hook it up to the log, you'll be sitting there all day. Nothing's going to happen, right? If you take the twigs, you take the paper, and you burn it. When the fire gets in, you put more twigs and more. And then over the course of 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the log catches fire. Once the log catches fire, you don't need any more twigs or any more paper. And then if you want to have another fire, what do? You take another log, you put it on top of the log. And what's going to happen? Within 15 minutes, done, right? So in that analogy, men and women, who's the log and who are the twigs and the paper? The women are the twigs and paper? No. No. The women are the log. The men are the twigs and paper. Why do the men have to go to shul 3 times a day? Why do they have to put on tefillin every single day? Right? Why? Because they need a constant recharge. It's hard to maintain the fire. With the ladies, once they get the fire, done. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he's about to receive the Torah, what does it say? Ko tomar lebet Yaakov etaged livnei. So go speak to the ladies nicely, softly. Talk to them gently, just like the snake did, but that was evil. Talk to them nicely. They will get it. Once they get it, then you can go beat the man on the head with a stick because they're going to have to listen. That's what Rashi says. So we understand the idea there. So the women of the log, and that's why the emunah and the passion, that's the ladies. Now, that doesn't mean men can't be passionate. Men should be passionate. Part of the goal in marriage over the course of years and years is men to become more passionate and women to relax a little bit and become less passionate, right? That's the balance. We learn from each other how to be a perfect person, yes? Because it's not good to be too emotional and it's not good to be too stoic. Okay? And it's no coincidence that this parasha always happens right before the Shabbat. These are lessons to learn, right? We want to build a Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael. The goal is to have the Bet HaMikdash built. The same things that help the person to build the Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael is the same thing that helps to build the Bet HaMikdash. We want to build a new shul. Baruch Hashem, Hewlett has a brand new Sephardic shul, right? The goal is for that shul to be here for 300-400 years, at least until the Mashiach comes, yes? Well, how's that going to happen? You go down Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn, you see lots of churches, but you look carefully enough, it's a stained glass window with a Jewish star there. What happened? Go down Brooklyn Ocean Avenue and take my word for it. What happened? They weren't all reform shuls, my friend. Why is it that the synagogues became churches? So you can argue white flight, and the neighborhood changed, the people moved out, but that doesn't work because in Williamsburg, they're not going nowhere. In Crown Heights, they're not going anywhere. No, you're making a mistake. If you want a synagogue, an Orthodox synagogue, I'm saying, to be successful for generations, it's not enough just to have prayer. That's the biggest mistake. People think it's a synagogue. It's for prayer. Yes. That's what's missing. And if learning is missing, prayer has nothing to hold on to. Because prayer is about expressing one's emotions, yes? But the Torah is where the source of that has to come from. The fire of the prayer comes from the Torah, not from the prayer. That's why the Torah is called Esh Dat Lamo. It's a fire. It's a passion. Okay, that's why if you look at some of the pictures of rabbis from many, many years ago, even some from now, you look in their eyes. You feel if you were in their presence, you could melt. Why? Because it's in their eyes, the passion. That's what's missing. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down from the mountain, Karan or Panav. His face shone. Why? Because of the Torah that was inside. So that's what's missing. And we need to work on that because, alos vama Torati. That's the reason why it says in the Tanakh that the Jewish people are thrown out of the land of Israel. Alos vama Torati, because they abandoned my Torah. They didn't have passion when they studied my Torah. And that's also another big mistake that's made in our generation, maybe even the earlier generation, that there are a lot of places where they don't involve the ladies in the learning. I think that is a huge mistake. 200 years ago, it probably wasn't needed as much. Why? Because the family unit was tight. The women had exposure to their mother and their grandma, right? And they got the emunah and all the things they needed just by watching what was going on at home. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't need classes. Maybe they did, but they knew the halakha as well as their husbands did because they saw it. They lived it. Now it's not like that. We have a generation of people now that are all Baal Tshuva. Their parents can't teach them anything because their parents were not raised that way because they came from places where the Goyim stamped it out or they were assimilated, whatever the story is. So now I have a whole generation growing up where there are women who did not have that exposure to a mother and a grandmother that could have fed them that in. So what are you supposed to do? Then they're no different than the men. Then they have to learn. Doesn't mean they have to learn Talmud, but they have to learn. So Baruch Hashem, we have half the people here are women. It's beautiful. Okay, and it takes two to tango. If you want to raise kids, you need to have two. It's very hard to do it with one. Just ask any single parent; they'll tell you it's very, very difficult. You need that balance. There's always one parent that knows how to do with this kid, and another parent that knows how to do with this kid. And generally, the one you know how to deal with the best is the one that's just like you when you were younger. I'll tell you, I know exactly how to fix that one's wagon because you know exactly what you needed when you were a kid. Yeah. If only my father would have figured that out, it would have been great. No, because your mother knew who you were. Anyway, so then it brings other examples. I'm going to skip some of this because it's not, so we get the idea, speech, eyes, from what we talked about. These are things we have to be careful. This is what the Perashot talks about. It also mentions tzitzit, by the way. Continuing on, and this I thought was very important to bring up. Amar Resh Lakish, Kol hazahir b'tzitzit, whoever is careful with tzitzit, zoche umshamshin lo shnei alafim ushmone meot avadim. He's going to be meriting to have 2,800 servants. Why tzitzit is so important? Again, it's not for the ladies. Why is tzitzit so important? Reminder. It says, uschartem et kol mitzvot. A person sees the tzitzit, he thinks about all the mitzvot. But why dafka tzitzit? There are so many other things. Why does the Torah, why about tzitzit? What about tzitzit is unique? A lot of things you attach to your body. Tefillin is attached to your body. Yes. Tefillin is portable.
You're on it all the time.
Okay. I mean, in the olden days, they used to wear tefillin all day long. We would, if we were able to keep our focus where our brains were supposed to be, we would also wear tefillin every day. Not advised because it's hard for us to pay attention during the davening. What is unique about the tzitzit? We said that. What's unique about the tzitzit? It's the only mitzvah that is voluntary. A Jewish man can go through his whole life, never put on the beged, the tzitzit underneath, because as long as you don't wear a four-cornered garment, there's no obligation. And there's all kinds of halachot also. For instance, for Sfaradim, many people, it's the summertime. The Ashkenazim, they get their cotton tzitzit to have it's nice and cool for them. Men, cotton is d'Rabbanan.
How about kippah?
Forget kippah. We're talking about tzitzit. That's a doraita. Kippah is not a doraita. Tzitzit ideally should be wool, and they have to be large, not small. It has to be covering a lot of your body, right? So wool strings, large. Okay, you sweat. It is what it is. But that's tzitzit. And it says a person who's careful with the tzitzit, what does that mean? He's looking for mitzvot to do. He's not just doing the ones he has to. He's doing this one that's a voluntary mitzvah. And that's why you see sometimes there are people who are from, but they don't wear tzitzit because they don't understand what the Talmud is going to say over here. They bring a pasuk. Ko amar Hashem. Remember I said ko amar? All the other prophets said ko amar. Only Moshe said zeh davar. This is what Hashem, like what Hashem said. Like we say, like everything's like today. This is in the Torah already. Bayamim hema, in those days, it's talking about the messianic times. Asher yachaziku asara anashim, 10 men, mikol leshonot hagoyim, from all of the nations. How many nations are there? 70. 10 from each is 700. Biknaf ish Yehudi, they're going to grab onto the corner of the garment of a Jew. Okay, what garment are we talking about? The tzitzit. How many corners are there? 4. 4 times 700 is 2,800. That means if you're wearing the tzitzit and you're doing it properly, what happens? When the Mashiach comes, you're going to be zochet to have 2,800 goyim who are going to serve you, who want to learn from you, and they're going to swipe their credit card every dealing day, and 10% or 20% of whatever they own is going to come right into your bank account. If you're not wearing the tzitzit, you're out of luck. How many you get? 0. 2,800, 0. Now, just do the math. If, let's say, the average person is making $50,000 a year, 10% of that is $5,000. Multiply that by 2,800. That's a lot of money. Or 0. So if you don't have tzitzit and you're not careful with it, do it. And
So you're gonna make an edit right now?
I'm not making an ed there. Okay? Again,
Money will sell
tzitzit
same
reminds a
value.
person of the Torah. And so, ladies, if you want help when the Mashiach comes, get your husband to wear tzitzit. It does count, but not as strong, not as good.
Why? Why? It doesn't have corners?
No, it's cotton. It's
Cotton doesn't have
it's not from the. It's not a Torah obligation.
Think it's gotta be wool?
We're living in an Ashkenaz world.
But the proper tzitzit-
If you want to have rice on Pesach, you have to have wool tzitzit. How about that? Now, you're yotze in the mitzvah with cotton, but it's not from the Torah. You want to purposely do it so you have to fulfill it from the Torah.
Some rabbis wear it like for double or triple.
Yeah, okay. They want to have more than 2,800. I don't know if it says that. I'm not sure that works.
No, I saw a rabbi wearing like 40.
I don't maybe understand enough. Isn't it a little contradicting if you're saying the rule is from the Torah, but it's a voluntary mitzvah? Can you just, I mean, it's not
Yeah,
like-
the voluntary mitzvah is, by the way, as far as the Torah is concerned, if you want to do this mitzvah, it has to be from wool.
If you want to do it.
If you don't want to do the mitzvah, you don't have to wear cotton, you don't have to wear anything. If you put a four-cornered cotton garment on from the Torah, you don't have to put tzitzit on, but from the rabbis, you do. Okay? So that's what I mean, it's the Rabbanan. So even if you put on a four-cornered garment that's made out of a material that's not wool, you still have to put tzitzit on, but it's the Rabbanan, it's rabbinic, it's not from the Torah. It's, listen, if I'm going to do it, what does it say? Kol ha-zahir. What does the word zahir mean? Careful. What does careful mean? Looks to do it the best. Mitzvot, a person should look. I'll give you another example. My kids will testify to this. It's correct. Okay, your son's going to have a bar mitzvah. Yes, Baruch Hashem, and you have to buy him tefillin. So I took my boys, and when I bought them the tefillin, I went into the person who sold the tefillin, and I say, "I want the best that you have. I don't care what the price is. I want the best that you have." And very simple why. It's a mitzvah you do every single day. Do the math. Let's say it cost you $3,600. Do the math. 50 years, 6 days a week, except for holidays. What's the ROI? What's it cost you? 15 cents a day? They're good forever.
Every 3 years, you got to.
No. That is not the halakha. The halakha, by the way, is tefillin, from a halakha point of view, if they're used every day, never have to be checked. That's correct. It's not like a mezuzah that's sitting there. You have to check it once in 5 years. Now we have a custom that during Elul, we have a custom that we check the mezuzot and we check the tefillin. But that's a custom. From a ikar hadin, when the tefillin is used every single day, it does not have to be checked. The only thing that gets bad is the ritzuot. Now, that's assuming they were kosher when you bought them. The sad part is sometimes people buy tefillin and it's a problem from the beginning, and then I realize for 10 years, 20 years, they're not putting on tefillin that's pasul. What? The ritzuot, these are the things that wear over the course of time. You replace them. And when you replace them with the best. And I told my boys, I said to them, I'm asking only one thing of you. When you're going to take your son to buy his tefillin before his bar mitzvah, what I just said is exactly what you said. Teach them. And then they're proud of it. It's, and the wonderful thing about it, it's not like a BMW where everybody knows, oh my God, that's a $100,000 car, right? Nobody knows. Unless you're an expert in tefillin, how do you know if it's a $3,600 pair or a $1,000 pair? You don't know. And the most expensive part is not the outside. The outside, the expensive ones are $600 for the batim. The Perashot are what's expensive. And nobody sees that. It's not like a Sefer Torah. I want to be a big shot. I'm going to give a Sefer Torah, so I'm going to spend $60,000 on the Sefer Torah, another $40,000 on the silver case, and everybody sees it. Nobody sees this. Yeah.
What if you get the best that's really costs $1,000, but the guy tells you pay $5, so you're gonna feel better that you paid $5?
No, you go to an if you have to worry whether or not the person who's selling you the tefillin is honest, don't buy from them.
For sure.
No, not for sure. I'm telling you.
Came to the guy who says, "Give me the best."
Most important thing.
600. You paid him 3,600.
If one day I'll
But he
give,
said 5,000.
Okay.
For the same one that was 36.
then he's a thief.
Yeah.
Then you don't want to buy tefillin from somebody like that.
What's so
I'll give you an example. Take a Sefer Torah.
I never seen a tefillin for 3,600.
Yeah,
Okay. If you want, I'll show you.
5,000.
For two pair.
No,
For the-
no. Anyway, trust me, you can spend 3,600. Okay. A sofer who's very, very good at what he does, okay, who writes it with all the different diktukim, who goes to the mikveh before he says Hashem's name every single time, spares no shortcuts, no nothing. That's going to be an expensive pair. Same thing as Sefer Torah. You could buy a Sefer Torah for 30,000. You could buy a Sefer Torah for 60,000. You could spend more. Nowadays, you can get for 60,000. Not too bad, by the way. I just saw that not too long. And that's not including the case, by the way. That's just the cloth. But here's the problem. When you buy a Sefer Torah, yes? Let's say the Sefer Torah is written by a person that's an apikoros. He's got a beautiful handwriting. Beautiful. He's a calligrapher. He went to the Juilliard School in calligraphy for Hebrew calligraphy. But he's an apikoros. He doesn't believe in God. What do you do with that Sefer? Let's say you find out that the guy who wrote the Sefer Torah is an apikoros. What do you do with the Sefer Torah? You burn it.
Burn it? You sell it to reform.
No.
You sell it then to burn.
You only bury a Sefer Torah that was kosher at one point, right? That was written by a person with Yirat Shamayim, right? And that Sefer Torah is now pasul and it can't be fixed. That deserves burial. A Sefer Torah written by an apikoros is burned.
What if it become
Hashem's name?
No, when he wrote it, what was he?
Hashem's name?
Because it's worthless. It's worthless because everything is about the thoughts of the person writing it.
Yeah, but you wrote Hashem's name.
I don't care. A monkey can write Hashem's name. That doesn't make it a Sefer Torah.
So you could erase Hashem's name and throw it out.
You burn it. It's not erasing.
That's right, Hashem's name. You just burn it, throw it out.
You burn it.
Erase it.
You never want anybody to take it and use it or use a part of it. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. Zahir, what does it mean Zahir? Careful with the mitzvah. And that's why this is, again, all mitzvot the person should be careful with. But this one especially, given what we see over here about the potential reward. Okay, next topic. I have a little more time. I'm sorry, a little off over here.
You also buy the best one?
I try to.
So the guy sells it for $300.
If it's the year and that's what it costs, that's what it costs.
Generally, if you go to-
Again, do you have to do that? No. Let's think about this. Etrog is it's once. It's for 7 days. If you spend $300 for 7 days, or you spend it for $200 for 7, or $150, a tefillin is the whole life. And which is more important? Which is more chashuv? One second. What's more important, tefillin or etrog? Why?
Use it every day.
Why else is it more important?
Because you're testifying.
Okay. Everybody remembers what we read in Perashot in Vayikra about the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol, right? The Kohen had a golden tzitz that he would wear on his forehead, right? That tzitz had amazing power to cause forgiveness for various things, right? They would look at the tzitz, okay? As a matter of fact, when they wanted to see it our parasha, when they found all these girls, yes, Moshe Rabbeinu gets upset because they went to go fight against the Midianites, right? And they found all these girls, right? And then Moses says, anyone who was with a man, you have to kill them. Well, how are they supposed to know that? So one of the opinions is, I think Rashi says it, that they would have the girl walk by the tzitz. And at the tzitz, if they had been with a man, and these are young girls, by the way, and they would turn green, that means they were with a man and they would get killed. Okay? This doesn't work for Jewish women, though. It only works for Gentile women.
Really?
Yes. Okay?
There's a new thing right now about the aura. Did you hear about it?
No.
There's like a special thing that will tell you without the tefillin, and when you put a tefillin, the aura changes.
Okay, I love it.
It's been for 10 years.
So coming back, the tzitz, that's a very, very special item, correct? Only the Kohen Gadol wears a tzitz. No other Kohen wears a tzitz, yes? What's holier, tefillin shel rosh or the tzitz?
What's holier?
What is more important? The tzitz of the Kohen Gadol or tefillin shel rosh?
Trick question.
But yeah, it's a 50-50 answer, so I'm going to want an explanation. Again, men, you have to give an explanation. It's not enough just to have the right answer. So that means half of you have the right answer, half of you have the wrong answer. But it's always the wrong answer if you can't explain it. Why is the tefillin shel rosh more important than the seats? No.
There's many times name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu
That's
written
it.
on it.
In the tefillin, how many names of God are there? In the tzitz, there's only one. Kodesh le'yud ke vav ke. In the tefillin, there are 30, 40 names, something like that. Yes? I don't know the exact number, but there's many more than one. And which one is worn higher?
What do you mean?
A Kohen Gadol also has to wear tefillin, no? Which tefillin doesn't the Kohen Gadol wear? The yad. No. Why not? When they're in service. Why can't they wear the yad? Because the garment, it says, has to be al bisaro, on his flesh. And there can be nothing that's interfering between the garment of the Kohen and his flesh. But the tefillin, not like that. So the tefillin is worn above the tzitz. The tefillin is here. The tzitz is here. That's why you see in shul people wear the tefillin over here. Please go tell them they're not yotzei in the mitzvah if the tefillin is here. It says al mitzcho. The metzach is the forehead. That's the tzitz. The tefillin has to be up here, where the fontanelle of the baby was when it was growing. That's where the tefillin has to be. So now they're going to take revenge against the Midianites. Yes. Midian. Who was the real troublemaker? Balak. Where was he from?
Moab.
No, he's from Moab. Why is God telling Moshe Rabbeinu to be selective, not to go after Moab, only go after Midian? And Midian is a little sensitive for Moses because his father-in-law was from Midian. Not that sensitive because he had no problem killing them.
Because they did out of fear.
I want to hear what he's saying.
You didn't do the tikkun because Pinchas did it instead of him. He's supposed to fight it.
I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Pinchas is to kill Zerubbabel Zimran.
Right, yeah.
But it's supposed to be Moshe doing that.
Okay, good. That's why Moshe had to participate here. I love it. That's very good. That's exactly right. Moshe Rabbeinu was crying, and he didn't know what to do. Okay, Pinchas took action. Very good. But my asking here is, if Balak was the king of Moab, and Moab was the instigator, Moab went to hire Bilam, right? Bilam came, Midian joined in. Why is the Perashot telling us to go after Midian? What about Moab?
Because they did out of fear and the other one did
No.
Out of thing.
No.
That's what I heard.
Why not go
We're
after
gonna have their door. We can't.
Maybe it's a reason. That's not the reason I'm thinking about.
We can't kill their daughter.
If you give it, of course you kill their daughters.
No, who's what's his name?
Can't let the men convert.
Again,
That has nothing to do with it. The men from Midian didn't convert either. They were killed, all of them. Why, if Moab was the one that...
because he thought that the Mashiach is going to come from Moab. That's why.
That's right.
Yeah, now
Because Ruth is coming from Moab.
That's what I was saying.
And he thought that-
Okay, you're trying. So now, and so therefore we see what? If you kill all the women, right, what's going to happen is you're not going to have Ruth. If you're not going to have Ruth, you're not going to have David HaMelech. So therefore, Moab was protected over here for a short period of time. After Ruth joined, then afterwards we destroy Moab. Okay? Another nation there were two nations we weren't allowed to attack in the desert. Which were the two? Moab is one. No, Midian, we're going to kill them right now. Ammon. Why Ammon?
Because he was the one that didn't bless them with the food. No.
Naamah ha'Ammonit, the mother of Rechavam. Rechavam was the next king after Shlomo HaMelech. His mother was Naamah ha'Ammonit. So that's why the Torah tells us not to pick. But even though we can't fight them while in the desert, they can't join the Jewish team ever. No, Rechavam. They cannot join the Jewish team. It says Ammon and Moab, the men, cannot come into the Kahal le'olam, which is forever. Even Amalek, technically, if he wants to convert, right?
Individually. Not
I'm saying individually.
Yeah.
We do not
Not as
accept.
a nation.
As a nation, there is no conversion. There is no conversion as a nation after Har Sinai. Why Ammon and Moab are not allowed to? We don't take converts from those people.
Because they weren't welcoming in the desert.
Why? No one welcomed us in the desert. Esav came out to fight us.
But the relatives.
They wasn't grateful to Jewish nation or Abraham.
Why should their gratefulness have been so important?
Because the Bnei Lot.
That's exactly right. Avraham Avinu took care of Lot. He did all this good stuff for Lot. And his own descendants didn't appreciate that? A person who cannot give recognition and hakarat hatov does not deserve to be in the Jewish nation. Now, that doesn't mean if you're a Jew, that's a character you have to work on. Okay? If a person doesn't have appreciation when somebody does something for them, that is not a Jewish trait. Okay? So they kill all the men, and then the women below the age of 3, the ones who were not with any men, were kept, and all the other ones were killed, right? What we see over here, one second. We see another factor here. What does it say? Moshe Rabbeinu, when he first sees that they brought back all the women, what happens? What does it say? Vaiktsof Moshe. Moshe became angry. Al pikudei achayil, with the leaders of the people, with the leaders of the army, yes? Why did he become angry? No.
Was because of the
The whole reason they're going to destroy Midian is because they sent their girls to seduce the men. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Hachayitem called nekeva." You kept all the women alive. They were the problem. So Moshe Rabbeinu gets angry. And when he gets angry, what happens? He forgets the halakha. So there's a halakha that's coming now about the whole concept of what do you do with utensils that you take from Gentiles? How do you kosher them, right? Because they use all kinds of treifot in them, right? So Elazar HaKohen, what does he do? He gives the halakha, not Moshe. So what does Rashi say? And this is a very important topic. I want everybody to hear this, okay? Lefi sheba Moshe lichlal ka'as. Because Moshe Rabbeinu came to a situation of anger, ba lichlal ta'ut. He came to an area of error, mistake. The same prophet that we just read was the only one in all of Jewish history that could say zehadavar, precise, exact. When he became angry, it disappears. He makes mistakes. There are 3 times the Torah tells us Moshe Rabbeinu became angry, and all 3 times resulted in him forgetting the halakha. What is here? When he forgot the halakha of how you kosher utensils, like metal utensils and things like that. Moshe Rabbeinu in Parashat Shmini, it says over there, he got angry too. Because what happened? Their brothers just died, right? We know the tragedy that happened, right? And what happened? There was a sacrifice that was made, and the Kohanim are supposed to eat from the sacrifice, and Elazar and Itamar would not eat from the sacrifice. And Moshe Rabbeinu got angry. What's the problem? He forgot the halakha. Their brothers died. Since their brothers died, they're onen. And onen is not allowed to eat from the korban. Only one exception to that is Aharon, Kohen Gadol. Even a Kohen Gadol, when he's onen, he still has to eat from the korban. There's no concept of aninut for Kohen Gadol. So Moshe Rabbeinu forgot the halakha. Why? Because he got angry. And then there's a 3rd time we read a couple of weeks ago. V'chen b'shim'una hamorim. What was the mistake, Moshe? He hit the rock. God told him to talk to the rock. He hit the rock. Why did he do that? Because he became angry. What did he do? He called the Jewish people rebellious. That's the manifestation of his anger. And now what happens? He hits the rock, and now he's not going to the land of Israel. Aaron made a mistake before. Aaron's mistake was by Chet HaEgel.
Miriam, right? Really?
Yeah, Miriam, nobody knows why she got.
Why Miriam died?
Yeah, we know about the Lashon Ra, but what real she
None of
got-
the women had nothing to do with the Chet HaEgel,
Right.
right? Even the Meraglim, it's a discussion about whether women, how much they were involved in that or not. It says Kol Yisrael, so it could be them as well. But Miriam didn't sin for that. She died because she was old. It's her time.
No, but there's a lot of people.
She was 126.
But there's a lot of.
It's old.
But Rabbi, there's another woman who actually went to the Israel.
Serach Bat
So
Asher.
many other people who was much.
Why did Serach Bat Asher live for
Exactly.
650 years?
Because of the blessing, But I'm saying
Blessing?
why Miriam doesn't-
What, no. What blessing?
Audio surprise. Audio surprise. She used to sing.
She sing to the Yaakov Avinu.
Yaakov gave her a blessing.
Yes, exactly.
Why did he give her a blessing?
Because he brought
She
the
calmed her down.
Gently said the news.
She gently said the news that Yosef was alive, because she didn't want her father to have a shock. An old person like that who's been mourning for 21 years is going to have a shock. So she gently sang that ladies, that sensitivity allowed her to live for 650 years. She was still alive in the time of Shoftim.
Why Miriam didn't have the same school?
Okay, I don't know. She didn't sing. Maybe she sang only by
She
Hassan.
did sing, actually.
She wasn't Serach Bat Asher. I know what to tell you. You're asking questions. This is God's.
She sang, yeah.
I know, but she didn't
No, but she got
sing.
punishment for listening. You know,
She didn't sing for
No,
her
it's just
father.
the-
The whole thing, the
what's the
sensitivity
root
that
of-
Serach Bat Asher had vis-a-vis her father, that he should not have. Miriam was a little tough. Miriam was not a lightweight. She was when Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to divorce his wife.
Toughness before that brought the husband and wife back, the parents back together.
Correct. She was tough for her father too, 100%. But that toughness comes on both sides. Aharon also had a certain sensitivity, right? But that sensitivity caused him by the Chet HaEgel to have a problem. So we see the Torah presents our personalities with both sides. It shows you that Moshe Rabbeinu was a great man, but he's not a god. He has mistakes. Miriam was a great woman, but she made mistakes. Aharon was a great man, but he made mistakes. We don't worship we revere them very highly. We say if we're their angels, then we're men. If they're men, then we're animals. That's how we look at it. And this is what the Talmud says about the ones of the generation before. Okay? This is how we're supposed to look. They're great, great people, but they're not perfect. And that's unique about the Torah. The Torah points out the benefits and also points out the mistakes. By Yaakov Avinu, Rachel, what happened? She wasn't having boys. She wasn't having children. So she goes to her husband and says, Hava li banim, give me sons. V'im ayin meta anochi. If not, I'm equivalent to dead. What does Yaakov do? What does he do? He says, what, am I the one who decides whether or not you're going to have children or not? The Talmud says, that's how you speak to your wife in that situation?
That's a mistake. That's a mistake, isn't it?
So again, the Torah tells us this, but the Talmud tells us he had repercussions of that. Okay? Chayecha. Okay, God made us swear about something. I don't remember the details because I prepared, but chayecha. So we see how careful we have to be, sensitive regarding certain things. And there, Rachel was legitimately complaining. She wanted, she was emotional. We get it. That's how she is. But how do you deal with that sensitively? Okay. So we see Moshe Rabbeinu 3 times got angry, 3 times forgot the halacha. What's the problem with anger? Why does a person get angry?
He doesn't satisfy. He's
Gava. Anger is gava. Okay? It's gava. Anger is gava. Okay? And when you get persons angry, it's because they think something should be happening a different way. Right? And the answer really is nothing really happens your way. It happens God's way. It just so happens that every now and then it's the way you want. But it doesn't happen your way ever. Right? you're not driving the bus. You think you're driving the bus, but you're not driving the bus. Okay, you have certain level of control over certain things, but you don't have control over most things. Hakol bidei shamayim chutz mirat shamayim. That's the only thing you control. How much proper awe you have of the shamayim. Everything else is in God's hands. So a person who doesn't appreciate that gets angry when things don't work out their way. That's an arrogance. And even though Moshe is anav mikol ha'adam asher pnei ha'adama, the most humble man that ever lived, the most humble, these are 3 times when the Torah points out we had a little bit of anger, right? And what happened? Forgot the halacha. His relationship is, right away. And he feels it immediately because he knows he loses the Shekhinah. He feels terrible. And then he quickly recognizes that. 3 places. One was in our parasha. One was in Perashot Shmini when he got angry at Elazar Tamar because they didn't eat from the korban. And the other one was he got angry at the Jewish people because they complained about the water and he hit the rock. So it says over here, Kol Hamit Yaher, whoever. But it doesn't say over there Vaiktsof. Does it say Vaiktsof? Let's see. Does it say Vaiktsof over there?
No.
And that anger, even though, that's a great question. Let me answer that a little bit better, if I may, because that's a very good question. Okay. There's 2 kinds of anger.
Repeat the question.
Ask the question.
So the notion was that there was 3 times he was upset,
Listen.
that he was angry 3 times, but we also know that when he came down from Mount Sinai, he saw that they were worshiping the cow. He got angry. And
It might even over say Vaiktsof. I have to double check, but I think it says again. So why over there does the Talmud say that God said, Yeyasher kochacha sheshibarta? The Ashkenazim, what do they say when a person gets aliyah? Yesher kocha. What does yesher kocha? It means nothing. It's really Yeyasher kochacha. Where do we learn that from? From there. So when Moshe Rabbeinu broke the tablets, God said, Yeyasher kochacha sheshibarta. Like a chazaku baruch. That's a translation for the Sfaradim. Agreed with it. He said, you did that. So now let's understand that. So let's understand there's 2 kinds of anger. One is when a person is angry on the inside and anger on the outside. That's very, very bad. One is anger on the outside, but not angry on the inside. And I'll give you the example. So let's say a dish falls on the ground and breaks in 2 or 3 pieces. What do you do with the dish? Throw it away. It's useless, yeah? No. You put it in the cupboard. You hide it someplace. You leave it there. So one day, when the kids are not behaving, mom or dad goes into the kitchen, takes the broken dish, and throws it on the ground. Why? Since they took a broken dish, their mind is proper. If they took a full dish, then their anger is on the inside. But the goal is for the children to see the anger on the outside, but on the inside, calm, cool, and collected. And that is very, very hard as a parent because kids can twist you in ways that you couldn't imagine, right? But the key of parenting is to maintain it on the inside, okay? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu break the Luchot?
To save them.
Correct. How did that work?
That was a contract.
No contract. It says if you're a person who's during Avodah Zarah, what's the punishment? Death. So he's holding the contract, the ketubah. He's holding the marriage agreement between God and the Jewish people. And God is showing on the outside that he's angry, but he's not really angry because God doesn't get angry. What is he doing? He's showing on the outside that he's angry. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? He breaks the tablet and says, what are you talking about? What contract? I don't see a contract here.
But the person is married. If you have a ketubah and you
That doesn't really help you because then you can't. No, because then you can't live with your wife until you get a new one.
That's what I mean.
No, actually,
I'm just saying in general.
Am Israel did not accept the contract yet, so
They sort of did, but he broke one of the ideas why he broke the Luchot was to save them because otherwise it's written in stone. Thou shalt not worship idols. It's in stone. I don't see any stone. Where's the stone? It's all gone. The same idea. So on the inside, even though on the outside you might have looked and thought he was angry, on the inside he's not. It's calculated. Okay? But on the three circumstances we have here, Moshe got angry on the inside, not just on the outside. Okay? And that's why it says whoever becomes angry is whatever, mityaher, becomes haughty. If he's a chacham, chochmato mistaleket mimenu. His wisdom leaves him. Because when a person gets angry, they're not thinking logically anymore. Yes? Im navihu, if he's a prophet, nevuato mistaleket mimenu. That's what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu. The prophecy leaves him. He doesn't have the connection. And then it proves it from various places. Okay? And then it says, Resh Lakish says, Kol Adam shekoes, whoever gets angry. So we see the same thing. The arrogance and the anger is brought similarly. Im chachamhu, chochmato mistaleket mimenu. By the way, it's Masei Pesachim 66b. Im navihu, nevuato mistaleket mimenu. So we see the same quality that anger causes for the wise, for the sage, and for the prophet is the same thing that anger causes. The arrogance and the anger are really the same thing. Okay? Continuing on. Kol shekoes, whoever gets angry, this says Rav Rimani Bar Patish, afilu poskin gedula min hashamayim, which means even if in the shamayim he's supposed to have greatness in this world, moridinoto. What? They lower him. Okay? Where do we learn this? From Eliav. Eliav was, who was Eliav? No, he's the brother of David HaMelech. The oldest brother of David HaMelech. Right? There were 7. David was number 7, right? Eliav was the oldest, if I remember correctly. Okay? Older brother. He was older. I'm not sure oldest, but older brother. What does it say by Eliav? Vayichar af Eliav ben David. So when David came to the front by Shaul, Eliav got angry. What are you doing here? First of all, David HaMelech was always pushed to the side because there was a thought that he was illegitimate, right? Yeah. So all the brothers mistreated him, very similar to Yosef, yes? So, the whole thing, or whatever. Anyway, so what happened? So they mistreated. So what are you doing? He got angry. Vayomer lama yaradta avalmina tashta. He spoke with him very, very not nicely. So what? He was, now Eliav, if you think about it, Yishai, we know the Mashiach, the Melech is coming from Yishai. Because Shmuel was told, go to the house of Yishai and there you will find the king. So who was the most out of all the children of Yishai? Eliav. He was the one that ideally should have been the king. When Shmuel went to anoint the king, all the other brothers, because he went to each one, not this one, not this one. It says, Lo bazeh b'char Hashem. In this one was not picked. This one was not picked. This one was not. Because Shmuel would go to each one, and the prophecy would come to him, say, not this one. Not this one wasn't picked. This one wasn't picked. Ubeliav ketiv, by Eliav, what is it written? Vayomer Hashem el Shmuel al tabet el mareo al gavoa komato ki me'astiu. By Eliav, what does it say? Don't look at his sight, because he was very handsome, and don't look how tall he is, because I despised him. So we see from here, the Gemara says, Miklal dehava rachem le'ad ha'idana, that up until that point he was loved by God, but as soon as he showed this angry, now he's pushed aside. He wasn't king. Until he makes teshuvah. But even so, and anger is not a good quality for a king. Very, very bad quality for a king. Okay? Look what's going on with the leader we have right now. Every time he gets angry, he looks like an idiot. He looks like an idiot even when he's not angry. Biden.
He never gets angry.
No, but either he's sleeping or he's angry at somebody. He's a grumpy old grandpa. Anyway, so and what do we see from here? We don't. 1 second. I'll leave that alone. Okay, so we see from here, just to summarize, no, we'll stop because it's a little late. 2 things. I think the 2 topics we discussed a lot of things, but the first thing is how careful we have to be with our speech, right? both in fulfilling what we say, not making promises that we can't fulfill, right? And when we say we're going to do something, to do it, okay? Also how we speak to each other, how we speak to our friends, our family, and things like that. And the other thing is about the anger, how to make sure that we keep that properly bayed. None of us are perfect on this because all of us fail. The question is, how quickly do you compose yourself, right? There are some people, it says the Talmud, there are 4 kinds of people. One person takes a very long time to get angry, and when they get angry, a very long time to calm down. That's Rasha. Another one takes a very short time to get angry, okay, and a very short time to calm down. Also Rasha. It's a person who takes a very short time to get angry and a very long time to calm down. That's a big Rasha. And then the best one is someone who takes a very long time to get angry and a very short time to calm down. That's a righteous person. There's no such thing.
You have tzaddikim. You have tzaddikim. No?
No.
In the Gemara, it's speak about it.
They never got angry?
There was one tzaddik, I forgot his name. He was going to the bathroom and he wants to do 40.
Oh, they were trying to pick on him.
Yeah,
But that
he
doesn't.
said, I never got angry in my life. Remember he said? I never.
All right, I have to ask his wife.
If the Gemara spoke about it, it means that.
But they didn't ask the wife, though. They asked the students. I was a student. They went and told the wife over there, you know what? Anyway, listen, the bottom line is that there are very few people who can get to that level.
Pinchas got angry when he did his action.
No.
Because the
No.
action
So he got zealous.
It's okay. If you get angry, you're worthy of the death penalty. A person's worthy of the death penalty. Because then it's not L'Shem Shamayim. In order to be a zealot, to kill someone extrajudicially, which was without a bet din, which is exactly what Pinchas did, right? There's no bet din. No one declared that Zimri deserved the death penalty. It wasn't a court case. It was extrajudicial. He went and killed them. In order to be, and that's why it's not encouraged to be a zealot. And if someone asks you the halacha, by the way, is this a situation where a zealot can kill that person? The halacha is no. Why? Because if they're asking, they're not a zealot. A zealot can't. It doesn't ask, just does. Okay? But if they're doing it from anger, then it's personal. And then it's not 100% L'Shem Shamayim, and then it's Chayav Mitah. Okay?
Pinchas killed a person.
Yeah.
So how they became a king?
Because he did it L'Shem Shamayim 100%.
But it's a different case.
And it was also Pikuach Nefesh. Jews were dying.
But the plague will stop after his action.
Plague stopped as soon as he did that. The plague stopped.
He knew when he was doing the action.
He didn't know. He didn't care. Yes. Kanai. In Hebrew, it's Kanai. Kanai.
That's jealous. Good question. He had blood on his hands. How can you get
Because this is a mitzvah.
He was gadol.
It's a mitzvah. If a Kohen kills somebody in war, they can still serve in. It's only if they kill someone in a non-mitzvah type of situation, car accident, something like that. Okay. Ribi Hananiah ben Akashu ben Tzah Kadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Yisrael. לפיכך קיבלהם תורה מצוות שנאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקתו יחדיר תורה וידיר. אמן.